The Accountant 2, or The Accountant Squared. This is a sequel that I never really thought I would see. This is once again directed by Gavin O'Connor, who brought you the first movie going on 9 years ago. And we get Ben Affleck returning as savant Christian Wolf, who's on the warpath. He's not just a forensic accountant, he hunts down mysterious assassins. And this time around, he teams up with his estranged but highly lethal brother, played by Jon Bernthal, in order to track these people down and to return a young boy to his mother. Now, I for one found that first Accountant movie incredibly underrated. I mean, clearly, I own the Blu-ray. I remember when I watched this in theaters and I was just so freaking blown away by it. And I was also blown away by it in the sense that nobody's really talking about it. Not a lot of people remember it, but I think it's one of Ben Affleck's better performances, if not his best performance. And he is once again fantastic here, not just in realizing the character with the minimal eye contact that he shares with people, but he's also really solid in the action sequences too. And I feel like Gavin O'Connor's been really good at helming action ever since I saw Warrior, which again, might be one of the most underrated movies of all time. I adore Warrior. But I think all the pieces are certainly there, and Ben Affleck is fantastic in this. Once again, he is really, really good. And I also appreciate that this is a sequel that doesn't really link itself up too much with the original, aside from the main character, obviously. We see J.K. Simmons in this for all but 5 minutes, I think. And it's a great sequence with J.K. Simmons, don't get me wrong. But he's more so a plot device in this than an actual character. We do get the return of Jon Bernthal, who plays the estranged younger brother of Christian. And look, I've known who Jon Bernthal was for the better part of 15 years now, since I saw him as Shane in The Walking Dead. And I feel like every performance he has those similar tics to his performance. What I feel like I should call Bernthalisms. And not to say that he approaches the role the exact same way every time. I just think he has a very intense niche. Jon Bernthal is fantastic at playing intense, but I honestly love how his character got to explore a bit more of a softer side than he's used to. Because my favorite part of The Accountant 2 isn't necessarily the mystery, isn't necessarily the action sequences. It isn't even necessarily that amalgamation of Good Will Hunting meets Jason Bourne that I equated that first movie to. It's about a guy who's really fucking smart, but he also kicks some serious ass when he needs to. My favorite aspect of this movie is something that hit really personally close to home to me: the brotherly bond that Affleck and Bernthal share together. I relate to Jon Bernthal's character so much in this situation. I have a brother who has autism, just like Ben Affleck's character. And I think if nothing else, if you like action movies and you want to feel inspired, don't just go watch this one. Watch the first one too if you haven't, because I know there's a good chunk of you that have not seen the first Accountant, which is appalling. I mean, it's right in here. Just go watch it, please. Like, could you imagine if you could reach to the screen and just borrow the Blu-ray from me? But joking aside, I do think The Accountant 2 is a very solid sequel with a very compelling mystery. The symbol of autism awareness is the puzzle piece. And I feel like there are so many captivating pieces to this puzzle that are there. Gavin O'Connor's direction is once again very stellar. The score in this is relentless, almost to the point where it's overstimulating. Yeah, these developers did their homework. And to cap it all off, it's a beautiful brother bond between our two main characters here, and these two give really, really stellar anchoring performances. My only real gripe with The Accountant 2 is there's a tad bit of sense of predictability, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I could sort of sense where the story was going and when the movie was eventually reaching its crescendo and when it eventually ended, and then in turn what was eventually going to happen. And it's not to say that predictable is bad. Of course not. It's a very satisfying conclusion here. And I certainly do feel like the door is open for a third Accountant movie to come out in like 2032 or whenever they decide to do it. But I think a bigger glaring issue that I'm sure some of you might have noticed in this movie, the puzzle pieces that I mentioned, you kind of have to jam them all in to form the cohesive narrative that you want. Because it is a pretty beefy runtime at about 2 hours and 12 minutes, and these guys cram a lot of information. Now, I like movies like that kind of force the audience members to pay attention, and I was never bored by The Accountant 2. But there's certain plot story elements that didn't necessarily fit in normal circumstances. It just felt like they were trying to force those pieces in, and they don't necessarily jive with the rest of the puzzle. There are a couple of brief romance angles that are in this, and look, I'm not going to say that these characters don't need romance in their lives, but it's certainly not the most interesting aspect, and they don't really lead to anything. But that's just an example, and I'm nitpicking here at this point. But The Accountant 2, moral of the story, certainly a very solid puzzle that was put together here. It's living proof that the pitch for Good Will Hunting meets Jason Bourne still works wonders. I'm going to give The Accountant 2 a B+. More proof that Ben Affleck is a heavyweight actor, and a wonderful brotherly bond that anchors this story. But let me know what you thought of this movie down in the comment section below. What do you guys think are some of the more underrated action movies that you've seen? I know that is a very loaded question, and I'm sure I'm going to get a good amount of answers, but I love it. I read all of those comments. I can't wait to interact with you guys even more. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Tap on that thumbs up as well. Thank you so much again for your continued support, my friends. Y'all are the best. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.